Today was the day Ethan Kang officially became part of his second home. He was assigned to Company B, 60th Regiment, 29th Division. Like other new recruits, he also had a health and behavior evaluation. Officials were surprised to learn he had a history of depression and a gaming addiction. During their investigation, his superiors discovered that Ethan's family was struggling. His mom was a street vendor, and the death of his dad just 2 months ago took a deep psychological toll on him. Because of this, he was often spaced out and lost in thought. His superiors gave him a badge with a smiley face so other soldiers could easily recognize him. After that, Tyler was assigned to go with him to the cafeteria. When they got there, they found Daniel Yoon, the cook at the cafeteria. He was known for being fierce and violent, so even if his cooking wasn't great, no soldier dared to complain. When the other soldiers saw Ethan's badge, they started picking on him right away. The older soldiers made him hand over his cards and bullied him into playing. Even though Ethan was quiet and obedient, they still weren't happy and kept teasing him nonstop. Daniel came over and told the soldiers off for being noisy. He told Ethan to sit at the other table and eat. Tyler saw that Daniel was watching their every move closely, so he reminded Ethan to be careful about his expression while eating. Ethan didn't get what that meant until he tried the mashed potatoes Daniel made. They were way too salty. He tried to cut the saltiness by drinking kimchi soup, but it just made the taste worse. He could hardly keep down anything he ate. He rushed to find some drinking water but got knocked over by a soldier. As he fell, he seemed to start hallucinating. He felt like he was drowning in a sea of kimchi soup. When the soldiers pulled him back to reality, he couldn't help but comment that Daniel's cooking was too salty. When the soldiers heard that, they immediately started whispering. Daniel's pride was wounded by what he heard. He insisted he was a good cook. After that, the leader checked Ethan's background and found out his mother was a street cook. The leader got interested and made 2 bold decisions. Move Ethan to the cafeteria as an assistant cook and put his name on the notice board. As soon as Ethan's name appeared on the notice board, it seemed his cooking career had officially begun. Since then, his aim has been to become a legendary chef. The higher-ups pinned all their hopes on Ethan to save the whole division from Daniel's terrible cooking. As soon as Ethan stepped into the kitchen, Daniel started picking on him immediately. At noon, Daniel deliberately made things hard for him and ordered him to fix the supplies in the storage. At the same time, the division commander called the Human Resources Department to yell at them about why they brought Ethan back to their unit. He even lied and said Ethan was an elite soldier. While cleaning the warehouse, Ethan found expired ingredients that seemed to date back to the Napoleonic era. The system popped up again and granted him 2 skills, ingredient organization and chef's eye. His new mission is to gather experience to level up. Meanwhile, Daniel is tough on the soldiers, but when an inspection team shows up, he becomes completely submissive. One day, the food safety inspection team suddenly showed up to check out the cafeteria. They found the kitchen was filthy, with grimy tables covered in grease, dirty rags, and a fridge that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in ages. Olivia, the cafeteria manager, arrived with Daniel to sort things out. When the inspection team headed to the warehouse, Daniel and Olivia were worried because Ethan was still in there. They expected to be embarrassed, but were shocked when the inspection team found the warehouse perfectly organized. What used to be a messy warehouse was now super organized. Everything was lined up neatly, all tools and components in place. Even someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder would be thrilled with how tidy it was. The inspection team couldn't find anything wrong, so they had no choice but to leave. After that, Ethan used the system's capabilities to organize the warehouse even more. The system explained that as his level went up, his abilities would get stronger too. When he completed the quest, he leveled up and it seemed like his body was wrapped in yellow energy. But to others, he just looked like a crazy guy staring into space. Olivia Cho wanted to have a private talk with him, but Ethan was too busy checking out the game system board right in front of him. Olivia thought he might just be hallucinating. Later, the superiors talked about the sudden arrival of the inspection team. They suspected it might be related to the division commander's call to the Human Resources Department. Both were worried about Ethan because they feared his mental state might not handle military life, leading to his complete isolation. That evening, Ethan headed to the shower room. Daniel was nice and even offered him some shower gel. Daniel noticed Ethan was super skinny and barely had any muscle. Tyler had already informed Daniel about Ethan's condition, so he kept a closer eye on him. While Ethan gazed at the game system board, it showed him the recipe for beef seafood soup. When he tried to look at the recipe, Daniel accidentally caught a glimpse of him. In Daniel's view, Ethan's behavior seemed even more odd. As a new soldier, Ethan was assigned to night duty for the barracks lights. While he tried to sleep, the game system screen seemed to keep flashing in his vision. Other soldiers complained they were having trouble sleeping because of his seemingly dazzling eyes. The more Daniel watched him, the more worried he became. He quietly counted down the days left before he could safely leave military service. It was early morning when the commander woke Ethan up to prepare a meal. Since they work in the cafeteria, they have to get up early to prepare hot meals for the soldiers. Ethan wanted to help with the cooking, but Daniel insisted that he just clean the floor. Daniel, still sleepy, cooked like he always did. He put so much soy sauce and dark soy sauce in the seaweed soup that it almost turned black. By the time the soldiers arrived at the cafeteria, it seemed like every meal was already a form of torture. One soldier grabbed a burnt sausage and closed his eyes while eating. As soon as the food hit his mouth, it was like his taste buds exploded. His head started aching and his mind went foggy. In his delusion, he saw them in the middle of a battle against Daniel. One by one, the soldiers fell because of his sausage. Others tried to fight back, but to no avail. Many of the soldiers ended up vomiting after eating. A brave soldier stood up and asked Daniel why he couldn't even cook properly. With Daniel's ego hurt, he started making excuses and eventually just left the cafeteria. Meanwhile, the division commander wanted to personally check on breakfast after hearing so many complaints from the soldiers. A leader texted Olivia right away to let her know what's going on. Olivia was about to head home but had to turn back to the cafeteria. Olivia and Ethan tasted Daniel's cooking and almost wanted to throw up immediately. With Daniel gone, they didn't know how to handle the situation before the higher-ups arrived. Ethan remembered his dad and how he taught him how to cook. He volunteered to make seafood seaweed soup, and Olivia agreed. Using the recipe from the system, he started to prepare. He first soaked the seaweed in cold water to soften it. He sautéed it in sesame oil. Since there was no beef, he swapped it out for sea urchin eggs. He used broth made from boiled seaweed and radishes to sweeten the soup's flavor. He finally finished the seaweed soup and served it to the division commander. Daniel showed up and was surprised to see the food Ethan had cooked. The division commander tasted the soup. After the first spoonful, he seemed to have a strange reaction, so he took an even bigger gulp. Suddenly, he clutched his throat and collapsed to the floor. Everything went into chaos. Ethan was terrified, thinking he had committed a serious mistake. In reality, his father, David Kang, had taught him the secret to making sea urchin egg soup, which was adding a bit of perilla powder to remove the fishy smell of seafood and seaweed. The division commander was rushed to a civilian hospital, while Ethan and Daniel were also taken by the military police for questioning. On the way, Daniel wouldn't stop whining and crying. Olivia couldn't figure out what the problem was since they both tasted the food and it seemed fine. When they got to the hospital, the division commander came around. 2 junior officers immediately asked him about his condition. He said it felt like he was overwhelmed by how delicious Ethan's food was, as if he was transported to a different world of emotions, causing him to pass out. Later, the doctor explained that the division commander was actually just allergic to perilla powder. They also said that Ethan's cooking was perfectly safe and both he and Olivia had tasted it with no issues. Everyone was safe and sound, except only the division commander was affected. Ethan and Daniel were punished, lying face down in the scorching afternoon sun. Olivia came over and spoke up for both of them. She admitted it was her mistake for allowing Ethan to make seafood soup. While Ethan listened to the leaders coughing and swearing, his mind was on the system board. It had a new function that could now show how others felt about him. Ethan realized that both Daniel and the leader didn't like him. The superior blamed Ethan for using an ingredient that wasn't on the approved menu. Ethan tried to explain that the sea urchin eggs were local products with clear origins, but the leader ignored him. He didn't want to know the process. All he cared about was the result. Since the division commander had an allergic reaction after eating the food Ethan cooked, Ethan had to take responsibility for his actions. Daniel mentioned that the sea urchin eggs were brought in by the division commander himself, so if someone is to be held accountable, the commander should be included too. When everyone heard that, they were speechless. Everyone knew that the division commander used the unit's fridge to store his own food. In the end, they were just reprimanded and strictly ordered not to let the incident happen again. He also ordered that all the food secretly placed in the unit's fridge by the division commander be destroyed, then released Ethan and Daniel. After that, the higher-ups called Daniel and scolded him for not keeping a close watch on Ethan. Because of this, Daniel's anger at Ethan went from 40 to 70%. The higher-ups discussed how they could no longer keep Ethan in their unit. Ethan has a psychological issue, and to them, he was like a ticking time bomb. To keep Ethan from getting further involved, they decided to transfer him to the Thermal Observation Equipment Department. His job there was to monitor underground activity from North Korea to South Korea. The leader talked to Ethan personally to explain the situation. Ethan was momentarily taken aback, but he still felt like people were meddling in his life. In fact, the leader was also having a hard time. He was thinking carefully and trying to find the most appropriate job for Ethan. He gave Ethan time to think. The system told Ethan he only had 72 hours left. He needs to use the skills the system gave him to make people around him happy and raise their favor towards him to 50. Otherwise, his plan to become a great chef will fail. Afterwards, Ethan went through psychotherapy. The psychologist asked him about his father. Ethan said his father was strong and always persevered even when life was tough. He wants to be a chef like his parents. The doctor encouraged him to be like his father and not give up on his passion, no matter how hard it gets. After the psychotherapy session, Ethan went back to the cafeteria. The officers came and asked them to cook instant noodles. The leader also ordered an extra soft-cooked egg. Ethan wanted to cook noodles for them, but Daniel refused. He didn't want Ethan to get in trouble again after what happened with the division commander. As the noodles were almost done, Daniel was about to crack an egg into the bowl to pour it into the pot, but then he remembered the eggs might be bad. Daniel worried about how to handle it. Thanks to Ethan's keen eye for cooking, he easily picked out the fresh eggs. Daniel was surprised by how sharp his eye was. With Ethan's help, the officers ate well, and Daniel's opinion of him improved a bit too. That evening, Ethan and Tyler cleaned up and packed bottles in the back of the kitchen. Daniel came over looking tired and bruised and asked Ethan why he wanted to transfer to the Thermal Observation Equipment Department instead of staying in the kitchen. Olivia overheard their conversation and immediately ran off to find the leader. Olivia thought it wasn't fair that Ethan got kicked out of the cafeteria just because he cooked for the division commander, who happened to be allergic. The leader thinks Olivia is too emotional and always considers others' well-being first, which often leads to her setbacks and not getting a raise or promotion. Later that evening, Ethan called his mom. His mom was worried older soldiers might be bullying him since he was new to the army. Ethan didn't want his mom to be sad, so he lied and said he was doing fine. He also said he was like an older brother who cooked for everyone, so everyone there loved him dearly. Because of this, his mom felt comforted and thought her son was maturing. After that, the system urged Ethan to finish his mission and even gave him a new menu. He went back to the kitchen. Daniel was so upset about Ethan leaving that he lost his appetite for cooking. Benjamin complained because Daniel was using sour rice to feed everyone. Daniel didn't agree, so the two ended up arguing. When Ethan was left alone in the kitchen, he started working with the cooking system. He knew how to remove the bad smell from rice that had been left out for a long time. He added vinegar to the pot of rice and cooked it as usual. The vinegar helped get rid of the sour smell. After that, he went back to Daniel's bean sprout soup. A whole pile of salt seemed to have been put in it, making the broth way too salty. Ethan added water to the broth to lessen the saltiness. Then, the system suggested he add pepper and green chilies to make it spicy. As Ethan was about to taste the broth, Daniel came back and reminded him not to interfere. Thanks to Ethan's kindness, Daniel didn't want it messed up again with cooking. After that, the soldiers headed to the cafeteria just in time. Everyone was sick of Daniel's cooking constantly attacking their stomachs. Benjamin encouraged his mates to try the food, and he was the first to give it a taste. Benjamin Beck was quickly won over by Ethan's dish. He thought Daniel made it, so he praised Daniel in front of everyone. When the soldiers saw Benjamin Beck eating, they started eating too. They were hooked by the food's special flavor. Even the pickiest soldiers were addicted to the cigarette-like taste of the bean sprout soup. The soldiers, who seemed ready for battle, were invigorated by the broth that tasted like they'd drunk chicken blood. The army's morale soared. They pushed back the enemy, and those spicy bean sprouts with hot rice were truly something else. Daniel saw everyone's faces and was surprised. Out of happiness, he also tasted the broth and was amazed by its taste. Because of that, he saw Ethan more favorably. His hate index was replaced by a favorite index that's over 20% higher. When Olivia Cho went down to the cafeteria, she was also shocked by what she saw. For the first time ever, the soldiers had finished everything on their trays. When she tasted the broth, she quickly understood why. When everyone is full, they have the energy to work. Daniel looked for Olivia and asked her not to move Ethan from the cafeteria. He told everyone that Ethan was the one who cooked lunch. That afternoon, Ethan was busy in the kitchen. He diligently organized the storeroom, which made Daniel happy. During the break, Daniel advised Ethan to stay in the cafeteria. Ethan had his own struggles too. He also wanted to stay, but his superiors wouldn't allow it. He had very little time left to complete the system's mission. He needed to win over his superiors to have a chance to stay. He asked his companion for help. For them, the quickest way to win someone over was through their stomach. Since Ethan needed meat, they ran to the chicken coop to get an egg. He then went back to the fridge to look for a tenderloin to cook, but couldn't find any. Daniel came up with a plan. He would use his connection with Mrs. Dong, who bought leftover rice soup from the army. Mrs. Dong readily agreed to help them. When Ethan got the sirloin he wanted, he was overjoyed. He began to cook. He cut the meat into large pieces, seasoned it with coarse salt, coated it with egg, and then fried it in butter. But the first piece was salty. Ethan decided to fix it by kneading with some fine salt. Finally, with Daniel's help, the dish came out of the kitchen. While Victor Huang was busy snapping selfies and picking a photo to post on social media, Ethan personally brought hot rice and meat to his room. He wanted to lure Victor Huang to stay in the cafeteria with that food, but Victor turned him down. Sadly, Ethan took the food back to the cafeteria. Olivia found out and looked for him. She understands the situation and the difficulties Ethan is going through. Olivia did everything she could to help him, but failed because the decision was out of her hands. Ethan understood that too, so he didn't make it hard for Olivia. Ethan invited Olivia over to enjoy the meal he cooked as a thank you for helping him in the past. In the end, time ran out and Ethan didn't complete his mission, but he doesn't regret it because he did his best. Afterwards, Ethan and his companions went for the night watch. They accidentally spotted a man crossing the border from North Korea. The entire division was in chaos. Benjamin Bayek was worried that the appearance of the North Korean man would negatively affect them. Victor Huang tried to persuade the man to say his name and the reason he was there. The man said he followed a fishing boat out to sea and accidentally got caught in a storm. The boat was wrecked by the storm, and he was lucky to be washed to shore by the waves. He refused to say anything else and insisted he wouldn't betray his great leader, Kim Hun. Benjamin thought the North Korean guy was stubborn. He was hot-headed and didn't know how to choose his words. Victor Huang pulled him aside to counsel him because he feared that if they didn't handle the situation properly, missiles might rain down from North Korea to South Korea. Olivia took on the task of talking to the guest. She was friendly and wanted to show the goodwill of the South Korean side. He even made hot honey ginger tea to help get rid of the man's cold. But the North Korean man was wary. He said their leader taught them not to use goods from South Korea. Olivia had no choice but to leave the room. At that point, they realized the case was tough because the North Korean man was so stubborn. Victor Huang thought of winning him over with lots of delicious food. Then he ordered Company B's soldiers to bring in a bunch of tempting sashimi dishes. But the North Korean man didn't even glance at the food. The soldiers left. Everyone was deep in thought because they didn't know how to handle the difficult case of the North Korean man. The doctor even had to tie his hands. They can't let him starve in South Korea because that could lead to tensions between the two countries. In the kitchen, Danielle Yoon felt sorry for Ethan Kang. Danielle was about to eat the pork cutlet when Olivia called. She asked them to bring the food to the North Korean man so he could try it. The dish was still hot and smelled amazing enough to win anyone over with just its aroma. On the outside, the man was still tough. But after a fierce inner struggle, he couldn't resist the temptation of the food anymore. He told Olivia not to tell anyone else that he ate South Korean food. The man took a bite of the crispy bone meat and was immediately hit by a storm of flavor. He fell into a deep hallucination and even started composing his own song while praising the Korean crispy bone meat. The rich, juicy fat of the meat was overflowing, and with the garlic and chili sauce, he was almost moved to tears at how delicious it was. Everyone outside was quietly eavesdropping on the North Korean man's reaction. When the news reached the higher-ups, they rushed over immediately. They heard the man moaning and assumed something bad had happened. They all rushed in and saw the North Korean man sprawled out on the floor. Everyone was shocked and scared, thinking he might have died on South Korean soil. After a while, the man woke up and started to trust them. He said that since childhood, North Koreans were taught that South Koreans were bad people. But the more the government restricted South Korea, the more curious people became. They secretly watched and listened to South Korean pop music and were drawn to its happy culture. Sometimes they couldn't help but join in the dancing, even with government warnings. As the man spoke, he couldn't get the taste of crispy bone meat out of his mind. He said it was the first time he had ever tasted freedom. The South Korean commander was overjoyed seeing that they had won the man's trust. He took advantage of the moment to tell him that he'd always be warmly welcomed in South Korea, and they'd always be ready to serve him delicious Korean dishes. The North Korean man felt the kindness of the South Koreans. Before leaving, he asked Olivia if she was the one who cooked the crispy bone meat. Olivia explained that the soldiers had prepared it. The man introduced himself as Kim Min-ho and sincerely thanked them for the best food he had ever tasted in his life. That incident made the division commander extremely happy. He never would have thought that just one pork cutlet could resolve such a sensitive defection case. He praised Ethan Kang in front of the whole division. Olivia told the commander that Ethan had made the pork cutlet for Victor as a favor, hoping he wouldn't be transferred to another department. Because of this, the commander scolded Victor for almost transferring such an excellent chef. The system informed Ethan that he had successfully completed the mission. As a result, his path to becoming a legendary chef reopened. Ethan also noticed that people's goodwill towards him was rapidly increasing. Leadership praised Victor for having such talented staff and suggested that the unit's 2 chefs be properly cared for and rewarded. The division commander also reminded Victor not to be too strict with Ethan because of his condition. He should give Ethan a chance to really show off his skills. Thanks to Ethan, the entire division seemed to be in good standing. Victor also started to see him in a better light. He took all the credit, saying that if it weren't for him, the pork cutlet wouldn't have been made, even though he used to be scared to try Ethan's cooking for fear of being poisoned. Ethan has officially become like the unit's adopted younger brother. He put on the chef's uniform, and the system started booting up again. Many hidden functions were activated, so he's got even more cooking menus to unlock. After that, Danielle told Ethan to make a salad. But his cooking skills are the opposite of his knife skills. When Danielle saw him holding the chopping board, his eyes almost twitched with nervousness. Danielle moved so fast that he ended up cutting his own hand. The cut was small, but it was so embarrassing for him that he immediately ran out. The next day at noon, Benjamin was worried about the unevenly cut salad ingredients. But when he found out Ethan had done it, he didn't dare say anything else. Ethan kept practicing with the knife, and his knife skills got better fast. Danielle often let Ethan cook by stepping aside when he had other tasks. With lots of practice, Ethan's cooking skills improved rapidly. His frying skills hit a new high. The most relaxed person that day was Danielle, while the happiest were the soldiers, because Ethan saved them from Danielle's mashed potato disaster. With Ethan's continued efforts, his frying skills and salad mixing ability got even better. With the soldiers well fed, they started training properly. The only sad ones were Mrs. Dong. She's sad because there was no leftover foods for her pigs to eat. The next day, the media reported on the case of the North Korean man. News about Ethan spread too. The soldiers were really happy for him, but there was one person who wasn't. That night, Tyler and Ethan had to clean the bathroom. While they were at it, Ryan came out to confront Ethan. He was jealous of how quickly Ethan had become popular. Ethan saw in his system that Ryan Cha's hate index was rising fast, and he wanted to hurt him. Luckily, Daniel showed up just in time and saved Ethan. Daniel made it clear that from then on, Ethan would be his protege. If anyone tried to harm Ethan, it would be like declaring war on him. He also said he'd become a beast against anyone who bullied Ethan. After that, Daniel worried about the day's menu. Pollock fish, the soldier's nightmare. Every time they served pollock, the soldiers almost threw away the whole tray of rice. Benjamin suddenly showed up and announced that the division commander was coming to check out the food. The soldiers scrambled and quickly cleaned their rooms. Meanwhile, Victor and Benjamin headed to the cafeteria to talk about getting ready for the inspection. They even got into an argument because Victor wanted to make sure all the food was delicious enough to impress the commander. Victor trusted Ethan and Daniel with a lot of responsibility. He told them to make a special ginseng chicken stew to impress the guests. But when Benjamin heard that pollock was still the main dish, he nearly freaked out. He still can't forget the trauma from Daniel's braised pollock. He wanted to swap it for a vegetable chicken stew, so Ethan went to the storage room to find a recipe. The system showed that the vegetable chicken stew was a 2-star dish, so he had to use a perseverance point to unlock it. While Daniel was cooking the stir-fried chicken with vegetables, Ethan watched him quietly. Daniel knew what Ethan wanted to do, so he stepped aside to give Ethan a chance to work. Daniel was surprised when he saw Ethan adding black bean paste to the dish. As he watched the food gradually become fragrant and flavorful, he became even more impressed with Ethan. Afterwards, Ethan asked Daniel if he could handle the tofu soup, and since Daniel respects delicious food, he agreed. But then a new problem arose. The tofu they ordered hadn't arrived yet. The supplier said it was going to be late. They only had 2 options: use pollock for the soup or wait for the tofu, even though guests were already arriving. The congressman showed up shortly after with a video reporter in tow. Daniel explained that the pollock had a strong, fishy smell and a dry texture. Ethan decided to use another perseverance point to tweak the recipe. With the system's help, he coated the pollock with breading and fried it to eliminate the fishy smell and dry texture. Everyone watched him in silence, feeling nervous. When Ethan tasted the fried pollock, the dryness was gone, but it still had a nasty smell. Benjamin was starting to lose his patience. They couldn't serve that to the visitors. Ethan said he'd find a way to fix the situation, so he headed to the storage room to look for ingredients. He remembered his dad who loved fishing. Because fish dishes often smelled bad, his dad used to use spaghetti sauce and tomatoes to get rid of the smell. Ethan used his last perseverance point through the system, even though his health might take a hit. Everyone was worried when he used tomato sauce on the fish dish, but he insisted he wouldn't go overboard. As the congressman checked out the soldiers' dormitory, he was happy with how clean it was. He also said he'd gotten a lot of complaints about the food, so he wanted to check it out himself. Meanwhile, Ethan's health kept getting worse from using the system. Olivia noticed he was really exhausted. Everyone went pale when they saw the ginseng chicken stew had been switched out for a pollock dish. Even the congressman stayed away from pollock because of its notoriously fishy smell. But because reporters were there, they had to keep up appearances. Suddenly, the system warned Ethan his battery was low, and he could lose connection if it wasn't recharged immediately. He still tried to finish the mission, but while he was getting rice for the soldiers, he passed out in the kitchen. When he lost consciousness, he found himself in a strange world. Under a tree, he saw his deceased father again. After a long time apart, father and son were finally reunited. Ethan hugged his dad tightly and cried like a baby. Ethan's dad was happy because his son had grown into a real man and was now a skilled chef. He was relieved to see his son was now able to support the family. But the world around them slowly started to fall apart. Ethan's dad knew they were almost out of time. He held his son's hand and warned him not to go back to that dangerous place. He also advised Ethan not to misuse the cooking system. After that, his dad handed him a bowl of beef and seafood soup. Ethan's dad urged him to eat the soup immediately. Ethan didn't want to leave his dad, but his dad said if he didn't go back, his mom and sister would be very lonely. In the end, Ethan ate the soup and came around. When the doctor saw he had recovered, he wasn't as concerned anymore. Olivia visited him too. She noticed Ethan was bursting with energy sometimes, but other times his strength just suddenly dropped. She asked if he was feeling okay. Ethan said he was fine, and after resting, his health got better. Olivia told Ethan how shocked everyone was after they ate the food he cooked. At first, the congressman didn't even dare to touch the chopsticks because he was scared of the pollock smell. But with the camera on him, he had to close his eyes, hold his nose, and try a piece. He was surprised by its taste and compared the pollock to a rice thief because it made everyone finish the whole pot. Everyone who heard what the congressman said started trying the dish. They quickly got hooked on the deliciousness of the pollock. Because of this, Ethan was able to save the whole division from disaster. The army chief even personally praised Daniel, Yoon, and Ethan. Daniel was thrilled. His face was practically glowing with joy. Ethan promised the chief that he and Daniel would cook the best food for the soldiers so they'd have the strength to defend the country. Olivia told the division commander that maybe it wasn't the cook's skills causing complaints in the cafeteria, but the low quality of ingredients supplied. Ethan also mentioned that the eggs brought by the supplier were already spoiled. Benjamin said he would ask the supplier for an explanation. Benjamin gave Ethan a sharp knife. Ethan was really happy to receive the equipment. At noon, the division commander said he wanted a barbecue on a hot summer day. In the scorching heat, it was like people's fat was melting while grilling. Daniel's face was flushed from the smoke, and it was obvious that barbecuing wasn't his strong suit. When the food was finally served, no one wanted to pick up their chopsticks because they had waited so long. Daniel got scolded for grilling too slowly. At his rate, the whole team might not have gotten any barbecue in time. Ethan decided to jump in and help him grill the meat. When Daniel heard that, he was as happy as if he'd struck gold. Using the system's skills, Ethan started grilling. He could grill twice the amount of meat at once compared to Daniel. He carefully adjusted the timing and flipped the meat. The barbecue he cooked turned out with an amazing color. When it was served to Benjamin, the difference from Daniel's barbecue was striking. Victor tried to give Benjamin a barbecue roll with lettuce, but he turned it down. Not long after, Benjamin ate a piece of barbecue, making Victor cough hard. He was amazed at how good the barbecue was. He felt like a mermaid bathing in the tenderness and juices of the meat. After that, Victor had a taste of the barbecue, too. It was so scrumptious, he felt like he'd joined the dancing mermaid crew. Even the picky soldiers couldn't resist Ethan's barbecue. Ethan was thrilled when he saw how much the soldiers enjoyed it. For a chef, the greatest joy is seeing diners embrace his dishes. Benjamin wanted to keep eating for a little while longer, but the leader stopped him. He said Ethan and Daniel had worked hard grilling for everyone, so they needed to rest and recharge too. The leader speaks up directly and doesn't care if it offends his higher-ups. Benjamin raved about the barbecue, saying if he had the chance he'd go back there to eat even while on duty. Daniel told Ethan that Benjamin was really picky and often ate meals cooked by Michelin chef Lee Ho. Later that night, Benjamin had his personal chef cook for everyone. Victor took a bite of the dish and could hardly handle it because it was so spicy. Benjamin enthusiastically poured wine for Kevin, Kim, and Olivia. Everyone chatted, and the atmosphere was warm and fun. Kevin Kim then said he was moving Ethan because he thought a different environment would suit him better. Olivia disagreed with that choice. Benjamin tried to shut her up because he didn't want Olivia speaking against Kevin Kim, but Olivia was still determined to protect Ethan. When Benjamin saw Olivia had the nerve to contradict her superior, he spoke irritably. He thought she was too arrogant. Olivia was so mad that she ran to the bathroom and threw up. She remembered her friend and told herself she wouldn't give up no matter how tough things got. When Olivia came out of the bathroom, Kevin Kim, who had been waiting for her, met her. He didn't miss the chance to take a verbal shot at her, but Olivia ignored it. The next morning, Ethan and Danielle received the ingredients the supplier had brought. Ethan accidentally found out that the rice they delivered was still low quality. Danielle advised him not to make a big deal out of it. For Danielle, the supplier was there to make money, not to cause trouble. Olivia heard this, so she came over and told off the delivery guy. At first, the delivery guy thought Olivia was just blowing off steam, but he didn't hesitate to say they'd switch suppliers if the quality of the raw materials didn't get better. Olivia also called out Daniel in front of everyone for being irresponsible. Not wanting to cause a fuss, he hid the real issue with the quality of the ingredients while Ethan was the only one who honestly spoke up. Ethan tried using his skills to fix the damaged vegetables and still managed to cook decent meals for the soldiers. After that, the yellow food cart showed up at the division. In the past, every time it arrived, the soldiers flocked to it like it was fresh shrimp. But this time, not a single person paid attention to what it was selling. A soldier told the vendor that the food in the cafeteria was now so good that soldiers no longer had to spend money on junk food. The vendor couldn't believe him, so Benjamin took him to the cafeteria. The vendor looked at the food Ethan had cooked and wondered what was so good about it that the soldiers would like it. But when he tasted Ethan's dish, he realized it was delicious. It was as if he had fallen into a hallucination. In his mind, he saw himself at a football game. He attacked the opponent's defense with all his might, but was painfully defeated by goalkeeper Ethan. Mrs. Dong also came to the cafeteria. At first, she was also skeptical of the food, but once she tasted it, she voluntarily became addicted to the flavor. Thanks to everyone's increased favor score and Ethan's relentless effort, he was able to move up 2 levels in a row. His knife skills have hit level 5, and you could say he's already pretty skilled with a knife. That night, Danielle happily told his family and friends that he will go home for vacation. But everyone was so busy that day, so he felt really sad and disappointed. He got even sadder when he overheard Benjamin and other soldier talking. They made fun of him and said he was a bad cook. They even belittled Daniel, saying he was just relying on cheap tricks to get by. Sadly, Danielle went back to the kitchen. He was in low spirits as he peeled an onion, crying like rain. He used that to hide his weakness. When Daniel isn't happy, he's hard to get along with. He scolded Ethan even though Ethan hadn't done anything wrong. After this, Danielle got even angrier when Ethan left because the leader called him. A few moments later, someone suddenly called out to Ethan. A beautiful young woman ran towards him. Her beauty captivated everyone who saw her. Without hesitation or embarrassment, she hugged Ethan tightly. She was very sad when she noticed he was thinner than before. The girl turned out to be Mia Jung, a classmate of the main character. She was a reporter, and her mission now was to go to the soldiers' division. Because of that, all the soldiers thought she was Ethan's girlfriend. They were all jealous. They wondered how a guy as scruffy and dirty looking as Ethan could land such a beautiful woman. Ethan explained they were just friends, but Mia was straightforward, saying love needs to be shown, like finding food when you're hungry. She also knew Ethan was into cars. Mia talked about her family. Meanwhile, Ethan really missed his mom and sister. Because of that, he seemed distracted at work and often dropped things. Daniel noticed Ethan was going through something. After that, Victor called him into the office. After thinking it over, they realized Daniel's leave request hadn't been approved. Instead, Ethan was given 7 days off to go home. Everyone knew how unfortunate Ethan's situation was because he enlisted even before the mourning period for his father was over. His mother and sister were still at home. Daniel felt sorry for his colleague too, but he was also upset he wasn't given any leave. Some soldiers even chipped in and gave Ethan a little money so he could buy a nice meal when he got home and celebrate with his family. Ethan got into a vehicle with a returnee license plate and traveled home to his family. When he got home, he found his mother asleep with her head on the table. The hardships of life and the burden of providing food, clothing, and money had completely drained her strength. His mother was overjoyed to see him again. After Ethan's father died, Sophia Kong took over running their small eatery. But because she wasn't very good at cooking, they hardly had any customers at all. Ethan ate the tteokbokki his mother made. He felt the heat of the sauce, but it really didn't mix well with the rice cakes to make a unique flavor. When his sister arrived, Ethan wanted to show off his cooking skills. He wanted to cook for the two people he loved most in his life, but because he lacked experience, he ended up looking like a rookie chef again. His cooking was so bad that his sister said he'd be kicked out in the first round of the cooking competition. Meanwhile, in the army, Daniel insisted on making a variety of dishes to keep the soldiers happy. He thought they were showering him with compliments, but he seemed to overestimate his own skills. It was clear from the soldiers rushing to buy snacks how much they avoided his food. Meanwhile, at home, Ethan wanted to help his family. His sister called out how he grilled the meat, saying it was slow and didn't taste good. He asked for money to buy a house with his friends. Ethan wasn't strict with his family. He immediately gave 20,000 won to his sister and the rest to his mom. He was scared his brother would follow his lead and handle all the problems by himself. When their mom saw that her two kids knew how to bring home money, it made her sad. It's often said that kids from poor families mature faster mentally. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He wanted to find a way to help his mom's shop. But when he wasn't in the military, his system didn't work. So he decided to really study cooking to bring back his dad's once famous diner. Meanwhile, in the camp, Daniel still hasn't given up. He started cooking fried beef intestines. Every time he cooks, the kitchen turns into a battlefield with all the explosions and dangers. Benjamin Bake understands the struggle Daniel is going through. For him, cooking is an art, but it's clear Daniel isn't an artist. The next day, Ethan found his dad's recipe notebook. He went with his mom to the market to study how the business works. According to his dad's notes, there's a big difference between freshly made and frozen rice cakes. The freshness of the ingredients is one of the most important things that make food taste great. All the vendors at the market know his dad. They happily greeted the mother and son when they saw them. Ethan trusts his mom to the people at the market, hoping they'll take care of her while he's away. Meanwhile, Olivia started getting suspicious about the military food suppliers. She did some digging online and found out that only one company was providing food to the military, even though the suppliers' names were different. They were just changing the company's name. When Olivia brought it up, a guy told her to stay out of it because it wasn't her business. He also mentioned that being too nosy can be dangerous. The next day, Ethan continued his cooking practice. He tasted the broth he made and realized it still tasted quite bitter. His mom also tried it and reassured him, saying it was better than before. but Ethan still can't forget his dad's simple yet delicious soup. After that, Mia showed up, upset because Ethan hadn't even told her he was on leave. Ethan's mom let the two of them talk together. As they walked, they saw a rice cake shop packed with customers. There was a long line of people waiting to eat there. Ethan tasted the food to find out why the store was so popular. The owner of the rice cake shop was a retired soldier. He still had the discipline from his military service. After waiting for a long time, Ethan finally got to try the rice cakes from the store. He was captivated by the depth and harmony of its flavor. The spiciness and sweetness were perfectly balanced with each other. Meanwhile, at the camp, Tyler Tuck brought Ethan's recipe notebook to Daniel. Ethan was worried Daniel might not be able to cook properly while he was gone, so he wrote down all the reminders early. It was full of the words be careful, and really be careful, because to him, important things have to be repeated 3 times. Later that evening, Ethan looked for the owner of the rice cake shop because he wanted to learn his recipe. But the old man refused because that was his livelihood. The owner thought Ethan only wanted to steal the recipe. Ethan openly talked about his family's situation. He just wanted to help his mom while he was on leave. The store owner was touched, so he agreed to teach him. The next morning, Ethan started training. He first tried slicing onions to test his knife skills and patience. After that, he was made to cook meat to test his fire control skills. But because the system wasn't there to help, Ethan moved slowly. Mia Young also came to help as a waitress at the rice cake shop for free. After a lot of effort, Ethan learned how to control the fire. The meat he cooked turned out golden and crispy on the outside, but tender and juicy on the inside. This surprised the store owner. That night, Ethan and Mia came home from the rice cake shop. Ethan was struck by Mia. Her looks and personality reminded him of his first love. Ethan was quiet, but Mia talked a mile a minute, so they got along great. Meanwhile, Daniel stuck to the plan Ethan left and pulled an all-nighter to make a big change. He whipped up a beef bone stew with milk and prayed hard that no one would get sick from it. The next day, Benjamin walked into the cafeteria and saw the broth, clueless if it was salty or sweet. He was speechless. But when he saw Daniel's under-eye bags and his determination, he held back his complaints. At first, he forced himself to swallow the soup, figuring just eating anything would be fine. But when he really tasted it, he was blown away. He drifted into a fantasy where he and Daniel were heroes saving a woman from danger. He couldn't believe he'd have to live with that for the rest of his life. Daniel was over the moon when Benjamin praised him. He felt all the trouble he went through last night was worth it. The next day, Ethan said goodbye to the owner of the rice cake shop. He learned a lot from him. The old man also gave him a box of red persimmons. When he got home, he happily shared them with his mom and sister. As he tasted the persimmon, he suddenly had an idea. He immediately started cooking while the idea was fresh. He made rice cakes again, but this time added red persimmons to the sauce. The natural sweetness of the persimmons perfectly balanced the spice of the chili sauce. His mom and sister loved the new recipe. It was incredibly delicious. The next day, Ethan's leave was over, and he had to go back to his unit. With the new recipe, his mom's store got so busy with customers that she couldn't give him a ride anymore. They just said their goodbyes over the phone, repeatedly reminding him to take care of his health. When Ethan got back to the unit, he reported to Olivia right away. After stepping out, he got a new mission from the system. If he completes it, the reward will be doubled, which got him really excited. Meanwhile, Benjamin and Daniel were hugging and crying. Benjamin was about to dive into some major training, so Daniel didn't want them to be apart. That night, there was a military exercise deep in the forest. Just like every battle, there were winners and losers. Ethan also joined the physical training when he returned to the unit. He had put off his own training because he was helping his mom out these past few days. Tyler Tuck understood the heavy responsibility Ethan was shouldering. Both were working hard to get good results in the upcoming tests. Tyler Tuck mentioned they were up against the A-team where the best soldiers teamed up. He talked about the team's accomplishments. Meanwhile, Daniel was super occupied with work and training and worried about the exams he was losing control over himself because of the pressure. Back then, Ethan's cooking skills hit a new level. His fried dishes came out super crispy on the outside but tender and juicy on the inside. In the afternoon, Benjamin talked to Victor about Major Im and Olivia. He called Olivia a problem child and told Victor to steer clear of her. After that, the soldiers started their field training. They had to wear heavy gear while pulling the mobile kitchen cart. From the get-go, everyone looked dusty and worn out. The division commander arrived to boost the soldiers' morale before the exercise started. While everyone else was busy, Ethan and Daniel were busy moving the kitchen again. Cooking with a wood stove is tough because it's harder to control the fire than with gas or electric. Ethan was in charge of the cooking team, but the blower broke and their supplies got wet. As a result, the quality of the dishes went down. The chicken stew had a smoky odor. Ethan was embarrassed but gave it his all. A few moments later, Victor came to scold the two brothers. He said their cooking was terrible. The rice was raw, the food was smoky, and the meal wasn't even finished. Exhausted and frustrated, Victor just coughed as everyone stared at them. The division commander ate the rice even though it was a bit of a mess that day. He tried to close his eyes as he ate, but even before the food hit his stomach, he wanted to make a dash for the bathroom. After eating, the soldiers lined up for the bathroom. Holding his stomach, the division commander rushed off when the two cooks saw him. They greeted each other politely, even though everyone was suffering from stomach aches. The division commander had no time to waste. He rushed to find a spot where he could relieve himself. Victor was shocked. The training he prepared led to a case of food poisoning because of the two cooks. Daniel explained they had cooked the food carefully and washed and boiled the chicken several times. But no matter how much they explained, no one believed them anymore as the soldiers kept getting sick after eating. Ethan wanted to know what caused the poisoning. He used his sharp chef's eye to inspect the pot of food. Then he picked a chicken thigh and tasted it. Daniel was concerned about his health and stopped him. Ethan felt the food wasn't sour or spoiled. At that moment, the alarm went off. It announced that the enemy had suddenly attacked their division. Everyone worried about their own safety and their comrades. Olivia led everyone to quickly rally their spirits. They had to pack their things and leave the dangerous area immediately. After a full day of tough marching, Ethan's group found a safe spot for the night and rested there. Thanks to his chef's eye, Ethan quickly noticed that everyone was out of energy. He was told to restore the group's strength by feeding their hungry stomachs. While everyone rested for the night, Tyler and Jason Joe were assigned to keep watch. Jason fell asleep, and his loud snoring echoed through the woods and mountains, much to Tyler's surprise. Then the two came across a suspicious man. He lied and said he was just collecting leftover food, so he easily got past the two easily fooled soldiers. But when the man approached the box of leftover food, Ethan noticed something strange using his chef's eye. He carefully raised the gun and told the man to cooperate with the investigation. The noise of their argument caught Olivia and Daniel Yoon's attention. Nearby, they found solid evidence in the suspicious man's pocket. Ethan's caution saved the group from danger. The next morning, the group's leader publicly embarrassed Tyler and Jason Joe. The two soldiers nearly put the entire group in jeopardy because of their irresponsibility. Victor said he'd discipline the two when the time was right. The group's leader was poisoned after eating the food cooked by Ethan and Daniel. He had severe diarrhea and it wouldn't stop. He thinks if that keeps up, he'll get severely dehydrated and might die there instead of in battle. He didn't know if he should be called a hero or a martyr. 70% of the soldiers in the squad were poisoned when the enemy attacked them. The head commander was extremely disappointed with his useless and incompetent men. The division commander was lying down, unable to help but frown because of his troublesome stomach. Things got even worse when they heard the supply truck had been ambushed. In the coming days, they just had to endure military rations. Meanwhile, the enemy forces were planning to speed up their attack to utterly annihilate them. By noon, Ethan and Daniel had broken the portable stove. As a result, the soldiers had to make do with instant food cooked with self-heating packs. When Ethan saw how weak the troops were, it seemed like they were ready to surrender even before fighting. He realized he had to come up with a solution. Ethan said that if the supply truck couldn't get through, why didn't they just go and fetch the supplies themselves? Any talk needed to be backed up with immediate action. 4 members of the group took advantage of twilight and started a risky move to reach the equipment storage area. But there were enemy guards present. In the end, it was decided that Benjamin Beck and Daniel Yoon would go in and distract the enemies. They planned to zigzag to dodge deadly bullets. The enemies were fooled and lured into Ethan and Olivia's ambush spot. As a result, the entire enemy group was swiftly ambushed. There was a hidden assassin who wanted to quietly kill Ethan from afar, but it didn't escape Benjamin Bayek's sharp eyes. Thanks to the group's bravery, The soldiers would have enough food again, and their noble actions were appreciated by the leaders. But the squad leader saw things differently. To him, Olivia and the group acted without their superior's permission. A division officer recovered after almost dying from severe diarrhea. He told Olivia that after the drill, she had to write a report about the incident. Victor's team was disappointed with what happened. It's true that sometimes doing good still ends up with bad results. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just doing everything they could to feed the soldiers. The two cooks found a packet of satay powder in the food box. Daniel introduced it as a special dish that would help restore the soldiers' vitality and strength. They started making satay mixed rice. Ethan also added a bit of ground meat to complete the meal. When the soldiers saw food that looked like the rice balls sold outside the school, they weren't that enthusiastic. One soldier even said to just throw away the rice balls because they were bad luck. Apparently, the rice balls were just rolling down the tunnel and ending up in the enemy's hands. Victor himself lost his taste for the rice balls made by the two cooks. For him, it was better to die of hunger than eat that trash. When Ethan saw his comrade's physical strength fading, he knew he had to act fast. He started making fried rice balls while Daniel was by his side, goofing off in the kitchen. When the fried rice balls were served, they looked okay, but everyone was still on edge because of the cook's botched attempts in the past few days. In the end, Victor took a brave bite. Suddenly, he was intrigued by the taste. The spiciness kept blazing on his tongue while his saliva washed away the heat. It felt like his whole body was waking up. The whole team started to get excited. They danced and made a song they called The Explosion of Taste for that rice ball. The red sauce mixed with the white rice, the intense spiciness rose like smoke, and with every bite, they seemed to be intoxicated with the flavor. Everyone loved Ethan's cooking, and their enthusiasm quickly returned. Only Ryan Taya acted up and refused to eat. But when evening came and he was on duty again, he secretly ran off in search of food. Ethan, who was naturally kind, found out. Ryan Taya recalled how his opponent had only added to his resentment. Ryan said that Ethan's cooking caused many soldiers to be poisoned and nearly died. He pulled Ethan into a corner because he wanted to hurt him. But they didn't know that there were enemy soldiers marching through a nearby tunnel. Because of Ethan's observant nature, he noticed this and immediately broke the news to Olivia. Olivia didn't doubt it. She gathered the soldiers and started setting up a trap. The whole team and those in the tunnel turned off their flashlights. They approached quietly on Ethan's orders. Then they used smoke bombs to block the enemy's view before attacking. Thanks to everyone's unity, their division came out victorious. Everyone was so happy that they forgot about Ethan being there. When the group moved, he got separated from his team. Ethan wandered around trying to find his way back, but couldn't. By accident, he discovered a commander's scheme. The commander planned to drive Olivia to the outpost. Terrified, Ethan went into hiding, but accidentally knocked something over, making a noise. Someone else noticed him and chased after him. Terrified, Ethan ran frantically to save himself. Then he hid in a tree waiting for his pursuer to leave. But he wasn't lucky. When he tried climbing up, his hand slipped, leaving him hanging in the middle of the canyon. He could fall at any moment. Ethan struggled, desperately trying to climb back up from the edge of the cliff. Just when he was about to lose hope, a new mission suddenly appeared from the system. He had to use the chef's eye to spot the kudzu vine with the biggest roots. Luckily, he found a big kudzu root and immediately grabbed onto it. As he hung there like meat drying in the wind, Danielle Yoon suddenly appeared like a savior. He reached out his hand and pulled Ethan away from danger. As they walked back, Danielle was talking non-stop. He was scolding Ethan for getting lost in the dark and breaking away from the group. He was really worried because the forest was full of dangers at night. While they were walking, they spotted something suspicious near a pool of standing water. They found two lazy soldiers who didn't want to go down the mountain to get clean water. Instead, they used the dirty water from the pool as a shortcut, not thinking about what it could do to the group's stomachs. Ethan and Danielle immediately went back to report their absence and the use of dirty water to the higher-ups. Victor quickly ran to tell his superior. Luckily, they were able to control the situation and save the old commander from a worse case of diarrhea. After this, the whole division was gathered, and all the soldiers' water canteens were confiscated. Olivia noticed that the two soldiers were missing. Benjamin immediately went to look for them. He found Ryan and Peter hiding in a corner, drinking, smoking, and bad-mouthing their fellow soldiers. Benjamin pulled them back but suddenly stopped because of the strong stench that almost made him throw up. It turned out that the two had been drinking contaminated water. Anything that went in came out the other end right away, like sliding down a water slide. A disciplinary hearing was conducted, and the two soldiers responsible for the poisoning incident were severely punished. Since the contaminated water was identified as the real cause, Danielle and Ethan were finally cleared of the previous day's food poisoning incident. During the hearing, Ethan was thinking about what he learned regarding Olivia. He didn't know if he should warn her about the person planning to transfer her. The next day, an award ceremony was held. Danielle and Ethan were praised for their help against the Viper team, discovering the source of the poisoning and saving the division from danger several times. Their superiors gave them a certificate of merit and 5 days' leave as a reward. Thanks to the skilled staff, Victor also gained honor. At the same time, the system informed Ethan that he had successfully completed the mission and leveled up again. As a result, he unlocked a new ability called Companion. His cooking skill also advanced to the intermediate level. While all that was happening, Kevin was watching him closely. Then he blocked him outside the bathroom. Kevin was the person Ethan accidentally overheard on the night the plan against Olivia was being discussed. As Ethan was running, he dropped his smiley face badge. With that, Kevin recognized him. Kevin used returning the badge as an excuse to stop him. He warned Ethan not to interfere in other people's lives if he didn't want to get into trouble. After that, Olivia approached. As soon as Kevin spotted him, he took off. A few days later, Ethan got promoted. Since then, he's been a private first class and is not on the special monitoring list anymore. As a reward for the soldiers, Benjamin bought jampong and grilled chicken. Everyone was thrilled with the delicious food and couldn't stop praising Benjamin, which made him happy. The cheerful atmosphere was only ruined when Ryan Cha and Peter Pio showed up again. They were left out of the feast because of their mistakes. They were really upset. Ryan Cha said that once Danielle stops protecting Ethan, he's going to pay for everything. The next day, Ethan got up early to work in the kitchen. Danielle came over to check on the kitchen and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw everything was in order. Danielle thanked Ethan. He said ever since they started working together, he's been having all this luck and success. Ethan noticed in the system that Danielle's favor towards him had reached its peak. Then the system sent out a message. It announced that Danielle Yoon was the first official companion added to Ethan's list. With that, the next chapter of his journey as a chef and soldier officially began. Ethan could now ask for help from his companions on his list without any limits. He asked Danielle Yoon to help him cook some rice, and it was successful. After that, Danielle's long-awaited vacation began. Ethan was left alone in the huge kitchen. He was the only one who had to cook for the entire division. That day, he made a beef stir-fry with onions. It smelled so good and tasty. Thanks to his sharp hearing, he immediately noticed someone was coming. Ryan Cha-yoon, the soldier, really holds a grudge against him. Meanwhile, the hero was handed a new mission. He needs to calm Ryan Cha down and turn him into a friend. Benjamin came by to let everyone know that Ryan could fill in as assistant chef while Danielle's out. When Ethan saw him looking like a street kid, he started sweating nervously. It'd be a miracle if he doesn't mess up the kitchen, especially since he needs to help now. But Ryan got lazy. He dodged all his duties, leaving Ethan to work by himself. As mealtime approached, Ryan piled lots of food onto his friends' plates. But when it was the turn of people he didn't like, his hand shook, and he barely gave them any food. That kind of behavior was super stressful. Ethan could see it all, but was too afraid to speak up. The kitchen is Ryan's territory now. The protagonist worked the whole morning. After that, Ryan's group got back together and had a barbecue. He called his friends over and told Ethan to serve them. Ethan refused, saying it wasn't part of his job. Still, Ryan's group kept teasing and bothering him. Ethan did his best because he didn't want any trouble while on duty. He went to the storage room to calm down. The system kept pushing him to finish the mission. He only had 7 days to make Ryan a friend. Since Ryan was saving on meat, the soldiers didn't have much for lunch. When they got their food, they complained loudly. They're so worn out from training and they don't know how to keep their strength up on such little food. Meanwhile, Danielle got home for his vacation. His parents had gone on vacation again. He even thought that since they were so sweet, he might end up with a little sibling. Danielle found it boring to stay home all alone. He didn't have any friends or relatives to be with. He wanted to call Ethan to chat, but was afraid of disturbing him at work. The next day, Ryan was the last to arrive at the cafeteria. Ethan was already waiting early. He showed his good intentions and tried to get along well. He said burgers were on the menu for the day and asked Ryan to help him with the work. But he didn't know why Ryan reacted so strongly when he heard the word burger. Ryan immediately left with a bang. Ethan was tired of doing the work of two people all by himself. Tyler felt sorry for his friend who had almost lost all his strength because of the situation with Ryan. But how can he help him if he's having trouble taking care of himself? Benjamin walked over to Tyler and tugged him by the ear. It turns out the person who wrote it in the report was wrong, like they went back to the year 2025. Ethan was still thinking about Ryan's situation. He wanted to understand it better, so he brought food to bribe Benjamin and Tyler. After getting full, Benjamin Park was happier and started telling stories about Ryan. It turned out he used to be just like Ethan. He was an orphan who grew up with his grandmother. His grandmother had a cart by the road where she sold hamburgers. When Ryan answered the town's call and joined the army, he was also put under special watch and given a smiley badge. He was also appointed as Danielle's assistant chef. Back then, he was innocent and cheerful. He was everyone's friend. Every night, he checked in on his grandmother. Because he did his job so well, he was given a special vacation to visit his family. When he came back to the unit, he even brought a hamburger that his grandmother made. After everyone tasted the hamburger, they couldn't stop praising it. Ryan was very pleased. But one day, tragedy struck. Benjamin Park brought news of his grandmother's death. After hearing that, Ryan went on a hunger strike. He lost his appetite for food and drink. He blamed himself, believing that if he hadn't joined the military and stayed by his grandmother's side, she wouldn't have died lonely and alone. One night, the whole division was in chaos because Ryan was missing. They searched for him everywhere. They found him near the fence. He just stared off into the distance like he wasn't seeing anything. Benjamin Park came over to comfort him and gently led him back. Ryan was really pitiable in those days. As a kid with no other relatives, he was easily hurt. Ethan asked Benjamin Park about the taste of Ryan's grandmother's hamburger. But all Benjamin could remember was how delicious the hamburger was. Ethan felt like that answer was almost useless. After that, he called Danielle to ask about the taste of the hamburger. Danielle mistakenly thought Ethan missed him, and that's why he called. He was disappointed when he found out it was just about Ryan. Ethan used the companion feature and borrowed Danielle's memory through the system. After that, he made a hamburger in Ryan's grandmother's style. Since then, he hasn't really left the kitchen. Meanwhile, Benjamin was always seen eating hamburgers. If he wasn't eating right then, he had just eaten or was about to eat. He'd eaten so many hamburgers that he got scared just seeing one. But no matter how much Ethan tried, he still couldn't match the exact taste of Ryan's grandma's hamburger. He remembered Danielle saying the burger had a sweet taste. So he tried mixing apple jam and mayonnaise. He didn't expect that simple combination to create a masterpiece. He quickly sautéed the caramelized onions and finished up the hamburger. When Ryan came back to the kitchen, Ethan wasn't there anymore. All he saw was a hamburger left for him. He was mad and wanted to throw it away. But because of how his grandma raised him, he couldn't waste food. In the end, he took a bite of the hamburger. He instantly felt the familiar taste of home. His heart felt lighter as he ate. It felt like he got to be with his grandma again, even though she'd been gone for a long time. Finally, Ryan let go of his guilt and regret for not being there with his grandma in her last moments. At last, he was freed from the heavy load he'd been carrying for so long. The once tough and grumpy guy was slowly turning back into someone gentle. He looked for Ethan after he fell asleep in the storage room. Even though his words were still sharp and harsh, it was clear his heart was softening towards him. The next day, when Ethan got to the cafeteria, he saw Ryan was already there ahead of him. He was surprised at how good Ryan was with a knife. Ryan remembers the days when he was at home, helping his grandma slice hundreds of Napa cabbages every day. Because Ethan helped him relive the taste of his grandma's cooking, Ryan had a good impression of him. Shortly after, the system informed Ethan that he had completed the mission successfully. Because of this, Ryan became the second person on his list of buddies. Not long after, a tropical depression hit the place where their division was stationed. Heavy rain poured nonstop for several days, causing the camp's drainage pipes to clog. The commanders led their men out into the rain to clear the waterways. The wind grew stronger and the rain lashed against their faces, making it tough for them to work. In the end, Victor ordered the whole group to retreat inside to avoid further danger. As everyone was entering, Tyler's glasses fell. Ethan quickly went back to help his friend. At that exact moment, a metal sign was ripped away by the strong wind and flew quickly towards them. Ethan and Tyler were ready to face the danger, but Victor charged in like a god dropping from the sky. He used his own body to shield the two of them. After the incident, Olivia and Benjamin helped bandage the sergeant's wound. His arms were almost fully wrapped up, so Benjamin even joked they looked like those traditional tiok rice cakes. While they were still laughing, a soldier rushed over to report that the gangland bridge had collapsed due to the storm. It meant the road to their division was completely cut off, leaving them isolated from the outside world. The power supply was also knocked out. The next day, the storm subsided, but it left the entire division in ruins. The soldiers immediately began cleaning up. Ryan and Ethan headed to the kitchen to handle the damaged appliances. With no power, there was almost no hope of saving the contents of the refrigerator. Ethan used the last of the ice to keep the frozen food cold. Olivia told Victor there was hardly any food left. With roads and bridges being damaged, trucks couldn't bring in new supplies. Even with this setback, Victor stayed positive, suggesting they rely on combat rations for 3 days. At the same time, the system gave Ethan a new mission. He needed to improve the soldiers' meals. If he failed, his career as a chef would be put on hold. While the whole division was suffering due to the storm, Danielle was happily resting at home. He kept checking his phone over and over, but no one was messaging or calling him. When lunchtime came, the soldiers sat silently, staring at their scanty rations. To them, the combat rations seemed like a flashback to the bad memories of Danielle's early cooking. The system keeps pushing Ethan to find a way to boost the soldiers' morale. He immediately dashed to the storage room to look for any ingredients he might use. The system suggested a traditional Spanish dish, but he refused because they didn't have the necessary ingredients. After that, the system suggested Spanish-style seafood fried rice. Luckily, Ethan found some seafood sauce in the warehouse and a leftover pack of shrimp inside the insulated box. When Ryan saw Ethan's happy grin, he caught his excitement too. He let him know that Benjamin had a hidden stash of dried squid. Meanwhile, in the command room, Victor struggled to send a telegram with his injured hand. Since there was no power and communication was down, all they could do was send a message manually. Victor tried hard to show he could still work even though he was injured, but Benjamin was annoyed to see him making things hard on himself. A few minutes later, the two veterans started arguing again. Benjamin left and decided to grill some squid to kill time. Ethan came over to ask for some squid. Benjamin didn't really want to share because it was his favorite, and he wanted to eat it alone. But Ethan was happy because he now almost had all the ingredients he needed. Ryan watched him as he busily prepared. He didn't understand what Ethan was planning. Ethan explained that he was going to cook Spanish-style seafood fried rice. He asked Ryan to help him find a lemon. He said he would use its sourness to get rid of the seafood smell. Ryan immediately remembered that Victor had bought a box of lemon tea a few days ago. Without hesitation, he bolted to the command room and snatched the box of lemon tea right in front of Victor. The sergeant was fuming but couldn't do a thing because of his injuries. After that, Ryan and Ethan teamed up to cook. Their teamwork was so great, they seemed like chefs in a 5-star hotel. That evening, while the soldiers were sleeping, Ryan woke them up one by one to feed them. Many were still wary because of the bland combat rations. But because of extreme hunger, one soldier decided to give it a try. From the first bite, he was captivated by the flavor. In his imagination, he was a sophisticated Spanish gentleman strolling under the Spanish sun, relishing a lavish feast. Soon enough, everyone loved the seafood fried rice Ethan had made. The next day, Benjamin called Ethan to his room. With the success of the seafood fried rice, Benjamin finally put his trust in it. One by one, he brought out his hidden treasures. Dried squid was very important to him. Believing not to put all his eggs in one basket, he hid them in different corners of his room. After this, the system sent a new notification. Benjamin's affinity index had reached the necessary level. As a result, he became the third colleague on Ethan's list to oversee rescue operations for other units affected by the storm. Meanwhile, Kevin Kim deliberately lied about the true state of Victor's division. As soon as the power was restored, Victor immediately contacted the division commander to request extra food supplies. But instead of help, he only got a sermon. Because of Kevin's slander behind their backs, their division was forced to endure the shortfall. When it became known that no food supply was coming, Benjamin nearly lost it. However, he knew Victor couldn't be blamed because he was just a victim of politics and personal disputes within the military. As supplies dwindled and the soldiers' morale continued to drop, they ended up eating ramen without any ingredients. The sadness and despair among the soldiers was obvious, and Ethan couldn't take it. He told Ryan Cha that Daniel Yoon loved working out at the gym and likely had a hidden stash of protein-rich foods. They immediately started searching Daniel's secret stash. Driven by hunger, no one hesitated to search every corner. They were overjoyed when they found the 2 boxes of chicken breasts Daniel had hidden. Thanks to this discovery, the entire division got to enjoy delicious porridge with chicken and vegetables. Meanwhile, Daniel had no idea his companions had raided his secret hideout. He just sat quietly at home, resting. But their happiness didn't last long. The chicken breast supply was limited, so after a few days, they were back to plain porridge. Due to the long-term lack of protein, the soldiers' bodies started to weaken. Some were nearly losing their sanity from hunger. They would fight even over a single piece of biscuit. Benjamin saw this and voiced his concern. "This can't go on. If we don't do something, the soldiers might starve," he said. Victor still wanted to wait for help from outside, but Benjamin disagreed. "Distant water can't put out the fire right in front of us," he replied firmly. The 2 veterans argued again because they had different viewpoints. In the end, Victor was forced to agree. Though hesitant, he allowed Benjamin to leave to find a solution. Benjamin got ready early for his trip. He took Ryan Cha along as his bodyguard. Many soldiers were teary-eyed as they saw them off. They hoped their commander would return with food or at least some help. As they walked through the woods, they realized they couldn't use their old route because the bridge had fallen. They had to find a different way. The paths seemed wiped out by the storm's damage. Benjamin felt like the woods were misleading them as they wandered in circles. Ryan almost lost hope because of the ghost stories about the woods. Meanwhile, at the unit, the soldiers refused to take a break. Instead, they lay on the ground, forming a giant SOS sign, hoping a helicopter or plane would see their distress call. By lunchtime, they were back to eating plain rice porridge. Lack of nutrition and the extreme heat from the sun had really weakened them further. While sipping their porridge, they just stared at the pictures of delicious food taped to the ceiling, dreaming of tasting them again. By nightfall, Benjamin and Ryan Cha still hadn't come back. Olivia and Victor were very worried. Victor blamed himself for letting the 2 leave. He knew he'd regret it for the rest of his life if something bad happened to them. In his intense worry, he tore the bandages off his wounds and decided to search for the 2 himself. But right at that moment, the soldiers shouted with joy. Benjamin and Ryan Cha were back safely. Even though they hadn't brought a rescue team, they did bring back a lot of wild vegetables and mushrooms. Despite Victor's harsh words, everyone knew he didn't have any bad intentions. He just doesn't know how to show he's worried, so he's usually angry and blaming. Ethan and Ryan jumped right into cooking. Being a skilled cook, Ethan quickly sorted out the wild veggies and mushrooms. They made a salad from the veggies and stir-fried the mushrooms as the main dish. The whole division had a blast. The fresh veggies brought a special kind of relief to everyone after days of hardship. Even Victor joined them for a meal in the dining hall. Benjamin made it a point to wait for him and even offered his share of the veggies to his injured friend. Finally, the misunderstanding between them got sorted out. Victor stood up and gave a short speech. He filled the soldiers with hope and reminded them that all the suffering would come to an end. There's no challenge they couldn't overcome if they stayed united. Meanwhile, Daniel was at a restaurant eating by himself. He noticed all the food seemed tasteless. His taste buds had been ruined because he got used to Ethan's home-cooked meals. When he heard the news about the storm on TV, he got even more worried about his colleagues. That night, Benjamin, Victor, and Olivia met up for a drink. As they slowly got drunk, they started to open up to each other. Victor admitted that he often blamed himself for all the problems. As many people often say, true feelings come out when one is drunk. Olivia also had a lot of complaints. She couldn't understand why she was still in the military, even though a lot of people seemed to dislike her. Ethan approached Olivia to tell her about the plan he heard from Kevin. But Olivia quickly dismissed it. She said Ethan was probably just misunderstanding, and she didn't want him to get involved in any trouble. Deep down, she knew Nam In-gu and Kevin Kim hadn't liked her for a long time. She expected them to use their influence against her. The next day, the food supply finally arrived. Victor immediately bragged that it was the result of his persistent telegrams, but he was wrong. No supply from the division arrived. It was Daniel. After hearing about the storm and worrying about his colleagues, he cut his vacation short and returned to the unit early. He brought a lot of food with him. Because of this, the soldiers got to enjoy good food again after a long period of hardship. Daniel also noticed that Ryan Cha had changed. He wasn't grumpy anymore, and Ethan wasn't being bullied. The next day, the roads were completely cleared. Victor and Olivia reported to the division commander. They announced that they'd fixed their unit's main problems. Olivia openly shared how Ethan made military rations better and how Benjamin put his life on the line to search for food in the mountains. When he heard this, Division Commander Kevin Kim was immediately reprimanded. Because of his carelessness, the whole division almost starved. By nightfall, the system showed up to Ethan again. It said he had successfully completed the mission. As a reward for all his hard work, he leveled up again and officially reached the intermediate chef level. Along with the promotion, he unlocked a bunch of new skills. From now on, he could cook food that was truly 5-star quality.